Welcome, everyone, to season 6 of the Runners Roundtable. It is the Beyond Pace season. It is the season that is quickly becoming my favorite season because I get to hear about people's favorite running memories and how those memories have, spoiler alert, how these memories have shaped the guests that come on the podcast. And this episode, it's Cortney Berling. Heard her voice before, and I want you to know that your episode is one of the episodes that I share with all of my athletes at
Oh,
some point because we got down and dirty with nutrition and how to fuel. And it was so practical and so attainable what you shared that I'm like, everybody needs to listen to it. So I give that to my athletes as homework to listen to. So, kind of know I'm giving a little preview as to who Cortney is, but I'm going to hand it over to Cortney because the reality is we spoke in May, or at least I think the episode came out in May of 2023, or if not, that's when we spoke. And a lot of
wow.
life has happened for you in 2.5 years. So, Courtney, if you can reintroduce yourself to us and just tell us, like, what's some of the stuff that's happened in the past 2.5 years?
Oh my goodness, Stephanie. I cannot believe really it's 2023.
Yeah.
That's nuts. When you emailed me about this episode, I was like, oh yeah, we talked like yesterday. Well, thanks for having me again. And I'm glad that the first episode was so helpful. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to that, you can go back to apparently May of 2023 and listen to that. Um, but yeah, a whole lot of life has happened since then. I mean, gosh, I'm trying to think May of 23. I don't know. I'm trying to do the math if my daughter was
You
born
weren't
then, but
living here. You were not
and
living
yeah, I
here.
have
Mhm.
three kids. They are 6, 4, and 2. So my 2-year-old was maybe just born and or about to be born. I don't know. But now we live in the Portland, Oregon area. I think when we last spoke, I was living in Okinawa, Japan. And so if you're familiar with Okinawa, then you can probably guess that we are a military family. That's what takes most people to Okinawa, Japan. Although I highly recommend visiting. It's kind of like the Hawaii of Japan. So really amazing place, very, very far away from the States. But we really loved it there. And you know what? We also really love living in Portland. We really love the Pacific Northwest, and the running community here is just absolutely unmatched. And so I feel like I have really entered my marathon era since I've moved to Portland. In Okinawa, it's hot and it's humid, and there's just a lot of other things going on. So I was running, but not super competitively. I was busy having babies and breastfeeding those babies and all things motherhood, which I'm still a mom, but my responsibilities are a little bit less as the kids are getting older. And the running community, like I mentioned, is so great here. I'm really tapping into spending time running with friends and having the competitive nature at the track and people to run with. So I've been doing a lot of marathon training and a lot of momming.
And the two big M's. Listen,
Yeah,
those are the most exhausting M's you can have in your life, marathoning and momming, right? Like,
that
and
is so true.
they're parallel. I always share the story of my first marathon, and I ran my first marathon after having kids, and I equated it to the training was being pregnant, running the race was being in labor, and
Uh-huh.
finishing the race was being given my baby. So, like I
Yeah.
was given a medal, I was given a baby. And I just
Yeah.
remember crossing that finish line and thinking, that is a lot like giving birth. I don't know if I'm going to do it again. And then,
Yeah.
enough time passes by and you're like, oh, that was such a great experience. Like you kind of forget.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
I love that you're in this momming and marathoning era. And it's been, I mean, I've seen it and you look like you're having fun with
Oh,
it.
so much fun. So much fun. And I think that's what makes it all that much more special is yeah, I want to run fast. I want to run well, but I really just want to have fun. And I really want to do workouts with my friends and long runs on Saturday morning and stay for coffee afterwards. And it is, the running community here has become some of my closest friends, which is such a blessing.
I'm going to ask you a question that, I'm constantly asking myself, and I'm sure people ask themselves, but how do you make a running friend?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I feel like I'm an expert at it because we move so much as a military
Yeah.
family. And runners are the friendliest people. So they're a great option for friendship. Joining a club is by far the best. Like, if you're a little nervous, you can start with your running store. I feel like a lot of the running clubs that start at a running store are usually really beginner friendly. They're really well organized. So go to your local running store, ask them if they have a club. If they don't, they could probably point you in the direction of some of the local clubs. I also meet people at races. When you finish a
Mm.
race and you finish near each other, you kind of have that post-race endorphin flow, and it makes you a little less shy to ask somebody, what their training schedule is like, or, if they ever want to go for a run. So I meet people at races, but definitely since moving here, running clubs have been the best way. I found them just through Google search, and you can usually they have enough information about like what paces they run or what days they work out, and yeah, their running groups are very inclusive and friendly. So check them out.
Yeah, I love that where you're like, it's like, so how do you date? That's what I felt like with that question. It's like, so where do you go to find these people? And it's like, they're everywhere. You just have to, step outside of your comfort zone to find them and to be open to meeting those people. Like just hearing you say talking to people at races, I'm like, but how does that work? Like, do you say, hey, here I am on Instagram, follow me? Like, I am just, and maybe I'm just a very awkward person when it comes to meeting people for the first
Runners are
time.
awkward, so you fit right in. We're all awkward. um, but I just met a girl at the turkey trot recently, and we walked like we'd kind of gone back to the parking lot around like each other, and she approached me, and was like, "Oh, do you run? Like, do you live around here?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then we talked about like training, what we're training for, and then she just flat out was like, "You want to run together sometime?" And I was like, "Yeah, here's my number." So I mean, I just like put yourself out there because I think there's so much strength in numbers, and running with other people is such a blessing. And that person might be your best friend, or they might just be a running friend, and that's okay too.
Yeah, and I think thank you for saying that because I feel, especially in adulthood, where in my experience, making friends is harder. I've had to learn that there are different kinds of friends, right? Like there are the running friends, there are the book friends, there are the mom friends that go to the school.
Mhm.
And it's okay. Like it's okay. I think when I was growing up, I thought, oh, but my best friend has to be the friend for everything. And now I'm like, oh no, actually, it's different pockets of friends. So it doesn't have to be that this person is my best friend in life, but they can be my best running friend, or they can be the mom that I get along with the most in my case, in the eighth grade class. Right.
Yeah.
So I like that you said that because that also takes the pressure off of
Yeah.
having to find, I feel like I see it all the time or hear it where it's like you have to find your person. And it's like
Hmm.
you can just have lots of people and be happy with
Yeah.
lots of people.
I totally agree with that. I am the same way with like, and I will label them that same way. Like, these are my mom friends, these are my running friends, these are, and sometimes they cross paths or they bleed into different areas of your life. But yeah, even though some of the people that I run with, they might have like different religious backgrounds or different,
Mhm.
but I love learning about different things. And it's actually like, the conversations you can have with somebody on a run. I mean, some of my running friends are 10 years younger than me or 10 years older than me. And running is the thing you have in common, and you can, find conversation on the run about many different things.
Yeah. Well, listen, we all know, right? When you're running things, just that act of not having to look at someone
Yep.
allows inhibitions to kind of just go down so that you can speak a little more freely. And I always
Yeah.
think of it in terms of, something as simple as like, did you poop before your run? I can't tell you how many times I've texted my running friends with like, I'm running late because my stomach isn't cooperating with
Oh
me.
yeah.
I'm like, I would never do that with anybody else. I wouldn't say, hey, I haven't been able to poop this morning, so I'm running late. Like it's
Yeah.
just
No,
different.
it's so true. And even like male, female, I feel like even like the guys I run with, like there was a porta potty and I'm like, I'm stopping. And they're like, no, no, no. I'm like, no, I'm stopping. Like, it's an emergency, judge me all you want. So yeah, it like levels the playing field. There's like a level of comfort, and you talk about things that you might not talk about with somebody else. And yeah, you're not sitting and having a cup of coffee staring right at them. It's
Hmm.
that non-verbal or your non like visual. You don't
Yeah.
have to look at them. And then you've got the endorphins going and the fresh air. It's amazing. I love
It's
running.
also, yeah, it's literally, and you're in that stage right now, right? This is running for adults is the equivalent of parallel play, we're both like, we're kind of doing our own thing, but we're in the shared experience at the same time, which is great.
Yes. Yes.
So
And actually, that leads me to one last thing on if you're nervous about joining a running club, remember you don't have to always run their pace. Like if you go to your local running store and they start there, let them be your accountability and you can start with them. And then, you might separate from the group on the run and then you're still going to finish with them and you'll still socialize with them before and after. So don't be too nervous about like, oh, what if they're not my pace? Like, yeah, they might not be, but you can still join in on them.
yeah. Yeah. And I think it's also, I'll add to that if you're someone, because I have my issues with run clubs because I'm like, I don't want to be the last person. But I want to add to what you're saying too, where it's take a friend, right?
Mhm.
Because I can promise you that there's someone else in your community who would like to run, but they're feeling scared as well. And how nice is it if you go together and you could just be scared together? And then
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
cool, right? Then here it's the community grows. Um,
Exactly.
so I want to get to the theme and the
Yeah.
topic of this episode, which is our Beyond Pace, your favorite running memory. And
Oh,
I'm curious for you if there is a memory. I know you have many, many memories. And what I've been telling people who come on the podcast, where it's like, I know it's hard. I'm asking you to pinpoint one memory, but the way I've been guiding it is there a memory that, when you meet someone new or when you're with a new group of people that you're like, oh my God, remember this one time this happened to me? That's the memory of like that memory that you like to tell the story, that telling the story brings you joy. It's something that you're like, oh, when I'm in a clutch for a story, I got you, and here it is.
mm. Oh boy. Okay, you're right. There are so many memories. And of course, like I feel like I immediately jump to, big races and PRs and like finish line moments. And those are really great. I mean, I'll just breeze through just a couple really quick ones, but like
Yeah.
in the Eugene Marathon, I got to finish on Hayward Field, which if you know running, Hayward Field is the mecca of Tracktown, USA and Eugene, Oregon. So many famous runners have run there. And so getting to finish the last 200 meters on that track of a marathon and to run a PR and have my family in the stands cheering for me, like that's a feeling I won't ever forget.
Mm.
But if I'm at a party and I got to tell a story, what I think of the most is I ran this half marathon in Japan and I didn't run particularly fast. It has a mile long hill. It's not a PR course by any means. But what I didn't understand was just how involved the Japanese culture is with running. Their baseball is a really big sport for them, but I had no idea that the whole town was going to show out. And you had 70, 80-year-old people on the streets, you had kids on the streets. Like, I mean, it was like, and this isn't Tokyo, right? This is Okinawa, this is an island. So it's small, and you've got everybody's just like lining the streets, everybody's out supporting. People are like handing you things, and the Japanese culture is so welcoming and hospitable that they're like they made things in their house and they're like handing them out to you as you go by, like it's their own water from their house that they got, and then the kids are on their drums on the side of the road, and if you are Japanese, I'm probably going to botch the word, but Ganbare means like keep going, kind of like a good job, you can do it. And so just like hearing this like Ganbare like over and over and over again the whole race, with just the cultural experience of it all. Like I said, it was by far one of my slowest races ever. And it just goes to show you that like the theme of this season, Beyond Pace, like it's not the PRs that you remember so much. It's the feelings you have during a race or the experiences you get. And that's definitely one of them for me.
Yeah, and I think even the two that you shared, right? That half marathon and the Eugene marathon, where it's like you're like, yeah, I got a PR, but it's also my family was there. So it's like even listening to you speak about it was the PR was great, but probably what made that PR even more memorable was the place, was the context of that. So it's not just, yay, you get a PR. I mean, because it's like, I mean, you know, I'm sure we've all had races where we perform really well, but we're there by ourselves. So it's like there's no one there to kind of celebrate with us or to remind us that it's special that we're doing these things. So both of those races have that where you're so supported, whether it's by strangers or by your family, or you're supported by the legacy of running. I'm thinking of
Yeah.
Eugene, right? Running there where it's you in that time have a shared experience with, I mean, you're a part of history at that point because you're on the same place where everyone else has run, not everyone else, but you know, where there is such a deep legacy within running.
Yeah.
And I love both of those because it is both, right? Where and I it's interesting because with this season I understand the importance of pace, the
Yeah.
importance of PRs and having that stuff motivate you. But the reality is 20 years from now, you may remember your time. And if you do, you know what? I want to snap to you because I do not have that memory for numbers. But I guarantee you that what you'll remember about these experiences are going to be the feelings that you had
Yeah.
there. That's what's going to
Definitely.
stay with you.
Yeah, definitely. It makes me think, as we're recording this, it's almost Christmas time, and I've seen a lot of Instagram reels recently about like, I've asked my kid, what did they get for Christmas last year? And they couldn't remember one gift, but they could remember the experiences or the trips that they went on that year. And I feel like that's exactly what this is. Like, that number does mean something, and it's, an exciting number to chase down. And I love a good PR as much as the next person, but it doesn't, like, that's not the memory you hold on to.
No, and it's so interesting to think of I think of my own memories. And they're what's my favorite running memory was actually one of the worst experiences I had, right? So I'm like, it's kind of you live it and then you process it, and how you store it makes a really big impact. And that's why I say, 20, 30 years from now, those times may not matter because it's what the race has captured is a is an emotional moment. Not so
Hmm.
much, how long it took you to finish, but it's that the journey that it took you to get there. Because with both of those races, again, we're talking about that half marathon and we're talking about Eugene. Those were two different versions of Cortney
Yeah.
who showed up at those races,
Yeah. That's really
right?
true. Yeah.
I mean, how many kids did you have with that half marathon?
I think that was my first bigger race back after my second was born. So
And
yeah,
and then Eugene was when?
Eugene was just this past April. So my oldest, or no, sorry, my youngest was, let's call her almost two. Yeah. So I had three kids who are all almost two and above.
Yeah. And it's like,
Yeah.
and you're still here and you're still running. And that's, to me, it's so incredible because you are running. And I had this realization, and I'm curious, I'm going to ask you this question because I had this realization that running has been one of the longest relationships I've had in my life. So
Yeah.
that's the question I have for you. It's how long have you and running been in a relationship?
I like that. I would say realistically since seventh grade. So how old are you in seventh grade? Like maybe
12,
12?
13.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, I guess you have kids that are,
I'm
you
like,
said
yeah, I'm
mentioned
like, yeah,
eighth
that,
grade.
that was
Yeah.
last school year.
Okay, that's easier for you. And so now I am 36. So yeah, what is that, like 24
For
years?
years.
Yeah. And that's like, I mean, I maybe have like dabbled in some like local races before then, but I didn't run a lot as a young kid. I wasn't the like 6-year-old on the starting line. Like, I did gymnastics and softball and, just a lot of other sports. But come middle school is when I really got into running.
Okay, I'm going to kind of jump ahead right now with some of my questions because
Okay.
given that we're talking about this 24-year relationship with running, if you could go back and speak to a younger version of yourself, and I'll let you pick which version that is, what would you say to her?
Oh man, that's so good. Yeah, because this is an important part of the story is that, my relationship with running hasn't always been good. It was fine, middle school, high school, fine, nothing noteworthy. I was never NC or, high school state champion or anything like that. I wasn't great. I was very average. Ran in college, really loved that. Was again pretty average, okay. Nothing super noteworthy, but great experience overall. But then post collegiately is when I got into some trouble where it was like, oh, I'm getting better at this as I'm getting a little older and smarter. My husband's active duty military. And so when he deployed, I just like poured everything into running and training. I mean, I didn't have any kids. I didn't even have a dog at the time. Like all I had to do was go to work at the hospital, like basically 40 hours a week as a dietitian, and then come home and it was just me. Like, so like I could run doubles, I could do all kinds, I could do a lot. And we were living in San Diego where the weather's always beautiful. So I just always went out and ran. And it's also really hard to eat enough when you're living by yourself. And it was like, cereal or peanut butter and jelly was enough to get me by. It wasn't from a caloric standpoint. It just was like, I don't feel like making anything.
Hmm.
And so that part of running at the time was fine. I actually hit some pretty big PRs, but obviously that's never how the story ends is like, oh, I underfueled and it went great. You underfuel and it usually catches up to you. And it sure did. And, without making this a really long story, it affected my fertility. And so when my husband got home from deployment a few years later, we decided to start a family. And I couldn't because my period was so irregular, missing. So that part of my life where running actually felt like something that had once given so much life to me. Like I actually met my husband through running. I met him on the college cross country and track team. Like it had given me all these friendships and memories. And then at this point now, I felt like it was taking away
Mm.
my future, my life, like the ability to make a family. And so, I would go back and tell that, 20 something year old runner, like, you need to fuel your body. Like, fuel is part of your training. And if you're missing your period, like, that is a red flag and it should not be ignored, even if you don't currently want children. It's something that you need to take care of. And that message was never really said to me. Even when I would mention it to a doctor, they would, oh, well, it's because you run a lot. When you want to get pregnant, come back and like, well, take care of it. And that was just terrible advice.
That's awful advice. And I'm curious, did you ever feel betrayed by running?
Yeah, at that moment, I definitely did. Like I said, it was like something that I would almost consider, I know it's like an inanimate object, but like it was like my best friend, right? Like it
Hmm.
had carried me, I mean, it's like
Yeah.
you run when you're happy, you run when you're mad, when you're sad, when you need to clear your head, like you running is there, right?
Yep.
Unless you get injured, then you're in a really bad spot because you need running and you can't do it. But yeah, like something that had given me, like I said, so many of my best friends, especially my collegiate experience, like running was the cornerstone of college for me. And like all of my best friends, my husband, everything. And then it was like something that I felt so betrayed is a great word to use for that.
How did you come back to running in a different capacity, right? Because I'm assuming you had to reframe a lot of how you were interacting with running. And I don't think that's why I'm like, how long have you been in a relationship with running? Because I feel like it's, yes, we're talking about running and it's like an inanimate thing, but because it touches our lives and it transforms so much of us, it is a living, breathing thing because it impacts our decision making. It does impact our mood, right? Like it impacts, you know, I always say that, training for a marathon, it's going to ask a lot of me, not only physically, but also I'm going to have to sacrifice a lot in order to make it happen. So for me, it's like, it is like a real thing. So I'm curious how you were able to reframe or reimagine that relationship with running to get you to a point where you could engage in it in a way that was serving who you were becoming.
Yeah, wow. Really great questions. So I think for me, I had to take a break from running in order to get pregnant. And that was part of it was healing my relationship with food, which, like I said, I mean, I've never been diagnosed with an eating disorder or anything. It was just like an obsession with healthy eating that
Mhm.
eventually became unhealthy, right? You're so-called, quote, too healthy,
Yeah.
that it's no longer healthy. And so I had to work on my relationship with food and I chose to stop running because that was like the quickest way to like get my period back and get my hormones regulated. And so I took a break from running. to get pregnant. And then I really didn't run much through my first pregnancy. And then I took probably the first 3 months off postpartum. So it was like, let's call it at least a year where I really
Mhm.
wasn't running. And I did other things and I found joy in other types of movement, yoga and Pilates and swimming, etc. And then when I started coming back to running, that's actually when I started my business. And it made me realize, gosh, if I'm going through this and I was never given this advice, I need to make my message. I need to build a platform
Mm.
to teach other women how to do this the right way and be the sounding board to tell them that under fueling, whether it's on purpose or on accident, is not the way to get faster. And so through building my business, and I mean, I have a background in, I'm a dietitian and, I have a master's degree in nutrition. So I had all that knowledge base, but then learning more about the sports side of it, understanding more how to fuel my body right. I have this firm belief that you don't really overtrain. We talk a lot about
Mm.
overtraining syndrome. You don't really overtrain. You're just not resting or eating enough to support the demands of your training. And so therefore you have a gap, and we have to fill that gap either by lowering your mileage or increasing your rest and nutrition. And so once I learned that and I learned a smarter way to train and a smarter way to fuel and healed my relationship with food, right? I was okay eating when I was hungry. I was allowing just more food, more variety. All of that came together. And I still don't run a lot. I have a coach now and he teases me I saw him, we were at the marathon together. And on the way home, he's like, "Oh, I got to show you what I bought. You're going to love this." And I'm like, "Oh God, what is it?" And he pulls out a hat that says normalize high mileage. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." I was like, "No." Because he like loves to tease me about that because I'm so pro low mileage. Like
Yeah.
you don't have to run a lot. You just have to run smart, and you have to, I'm not saying you have to sit on the couch and you're going to get faster, but you have to be strategic about it. And once I learned that, how to be more strategic with my energy and my training, that's what changed the game. And I mean, and now I've PR'd in the marathon from my very first marathon in 2013 until now, the end of 2025. Let me do the math here. By 9 minutes, I've improved my marathon time, and that's with 3 kids in there too.
Yeah. I mean, it's life, right? And again, I think running responds to it. And I remember you saying that in our first conversation, and it really shifted a lot for me. You're not overtrained, you're underfueled.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, oh, okay, well, thanks. Like I didn't realize it was that straightforward, but I get it now. And it's hard. It really is hard because there's so many messages out there as to how to fuel, how much to fuel. It gets really overwhelming. And I was laughing when you said peanut butter and jelly sandwich because that's totally what I had for lunch today because I was like, I don't feel like and I have meals. I just didn't feel like warming one up. And I was like, a peanut
Hmm.
butter and jelly sandwich is a lot easier than
Yeah.
warming up a meal. So I'm laughing at that because it is really easy to fall into the habits of what's easiest when we're just stressed, overwhelmed, tired, not wanting to do it. But it
Yeah.
takes real intention to be like, is this actually supporting me? And is this actually helping me? So, as soon as we hop off, I'm going to go make sure I have something
Yeah.
better.
And nothing is wrong with peanut butter and jelly. So don't feel bad about that. It's actually pretty well balanced food, but it's often just not enough if
Yeah.
you're, training. And,
Yeah.
for me, I was like working all day and running like the highest mileage of my life that like no way would a peanut butter and jelly sandwich
Yeah.
cut it for dinner.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Listen, today that it's not cutting it. Like I know it's not cutting it. So on today specifically. But I want to kind of go back to these two
okay.
memories that you've shared, and I'm combining Eugene and I'm combining that half marathon. Can you I don't think you said, or I did not ask, that half marathon that was in Japan, when was that?
It's always so hard to remember because the weather's so nice there. There's like no seasons. I want to say I'm pretty sure it was November of 22.
Okay, so we've got November of 22 and then May 25, right? For
Yeah,
Eugene?
April 25, but yeah, same,
Yeah,
same.
April. Yeah, similar. I'm like, when is it? So we've got these two experiences that are 3 years apart, 3-ish years apart. And when I'm looking at like the themes of these, right? And it's the experience and it's the feeling and it's the feeling of support and having people there. Again, two experiences years apart. How would you say having those experiences have shaped who you are as a runner and have
Mm.
shaped whatever version of this relationship with running you're in right now?
Yeah. I think those experiences remind me, kind of to touch back on what we were talking about, like that it's not all about the time, that it is so much about who you're with and like the people around you. And so that's big. One thing I talk about with my coach all the time is like, I would rather do a different workout if it means I get to run it with somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
because I would rather be with my team or my friends and, just not have the workout that I had planned on doing. And the importance of the relationship, not just with running, but with my running friends, because we've moved more times than, I don't know, 4 times or so now in our 13 years in the military. In everywhere we go, the relationships that stick with me are the running relationships, or the relationships I've met through running, because we are that close. Not because we're so similar, but because those conversations are so deep and that bond is so deep. And, especially if you run a marathon with somebody, I mean, it's like trauma bonding, Like, I mean, I caught up with some friends at the finish line at CIM, and we walked we all ran together and we walked the finish line area together looking for, all the friends and our clothes and all the things you get after the race. And it was just like, I mean, we were just like, there was just so many thoughts and feelings, and, like it is trauma bonding in the best way.
It is. And I think it's also the having people who understand it, right? Having people
Mhm.
who understand it because in my household, no one else is going to understand that feeling of a
Yeah.
marathon. I am living in the body that runs marathons and I don't understand it at times, right? Like there are days where I'm like, why am I doing this? And it's the community, really. It's the
Mhm.
community that keeps me showing up. It's the and I've shared it before, my own awe of sharing space during a race with so many other people. And it,
Yeah.
again, it's tapping into what you said with Eugene, right? You're finishing somewhere where all these other people have finished. And it's not just, it's not our everyday runners, but it's the runners that changed the history of running
Yeah.
or the runners that made running popular or like had a role in expanding running beyond the track, right?
Mhm.
So that's the running piece and the relationship with running and the running with your friends. I love all of that because sometimes it is easier to suffer together
Oh
than
yeah.
to suffer by yourself. And especially when if you're running with people and I've had the privilege of running 2 marathons with other people, and it's you kind of tag team the struggle where it's like you struggling, okay, don't worry, I'll talk for the next 5 miles if that's what you need me to do, and then after that, how about there is something of having that person with you pulls you forward, right? Where it's like, oh, it's not just me. Because it's sometimes it's easier to just say, I give up when it's me. But when you have somebody else, you're like, oh no, I need to keep going. Even though you're both probably having the same thoughts of, I wish they would slow down or stop or leave me, right? Like those are kind of the thoughts. So I really love that. Um, I have a few more questions. So I
Okay.
asked you about talking to your younger runner self, and now it's the flip side of that is what hopes do you have for your future runner self?
I think the biggest thing is I just never want to stop loving running. I just always want to love it, and I want to run in a way that brings me joy, where it never feels like a chore or a job. I tell the athletes that I coach, I'm like, good news, we're not going to the Olympics. Like, I know that sounds like bad news, but it's actually great. Like, if you don't feel like running today, you don't have to. Like, your livelihood doesn't depend on this, your family's love and support doesn't depend on this. And that is great news, and obviously, like, you want to just love going out there. You want to find joy in it. And that's my hope for myself always. Actually, one thing I had said on my Instagram story just this morning was I had saw two older women. Like they clearly looked older. The fool had a gray hair, and you could just tell by their stature that they were older. And they were running together. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to be 70 and running. And they were together, like two old girlfriends. And I was like, that is my hope and dream for myself. And it was raining and like it's kind of a stormy day here in the Pacific Northwest. And I'm like, they're not just out on like a leisurely, like they're committed. Like this is
Mhm.
great. So
Mhm.
that is my hope for myself.
That is my hope too. I was crossing my fingers
Yeah.
as best as I could because to do that, to do that is such a gift. And to have someone that's going to be, I've said it before, runners are not right in the head. And to have someone else who's not right in the head with you out
Yeah.
in the rain, like that is, I wish that for myself. All right.
Yes.
The next question is, how do you celebrate yourself as a runner?
Mm. That's a good question too. Everyone, I'm like, oh, that's so good. But how do I celebrate myself as a runner? I mean, I think a big part of it is allowing time to reflect. I think we go from one thing right into the next thing so quickly, so rushed, and just sitting with that experience. And, I journal quite a bit, not as much as I used to, a lot of young kids running around, as I mentioned. So we lose some of that time. But, really sitting and reflecting on the experience, the good, the bad, you learn from the bad. It's never failure, it's always feedback. And so just allowing yourself to be present in that, and not just rushing on to the next thing, not just rushing on to the next race, but really enjoying the whole experience. And I really felt that after I just ran CIM, the California International Marathon, in Sacramento. And my family and my kids didn't come because it's hard to fly a family of five to
Yeah.
Sacramento in December. And so we didn't do that. But I was with a bunch of running friends, and I allowed myself, like, we went out. I mean, like, we didn't go crazy or anything, but I just like was like, this is my night. Like I ran well. I'm here. Like, I just want to soak this in. Like, I don't know when I'm
Mhm.
gonna PR again. Maybe I won't. I don't know. Just soak in that day and be fully present.
I appreciate that because that's been something that I've been thinking a lot about, right? When it comes to particularly like this season, and that's why Beyond Pace is a big part of it, because the reality is you don't know when your last PR is, just like you don't know when your last race is, right? This
Yeah.
could have been your final marathon for whatever reason,
Yeah.
right? It might not even be like, it just could be for whatever reason, it might be your final marathon. And when we're rushing to get to the next thing, to what you're saying, we're not appreciating it. And we're not appreciating the journey. We're not appreciating how incredible it is that you were injury free and well
Yeah.
fed and like all these things that you were able to even make it to the start line,
I know.
then healthy enough to get to the finish line. All those things we miss out on when we the two, right? Where it's like, okay, that was a great experience. I want to do it again. Let's do it again. Or that was a bad experience and I want to find a redemption race. Whereas what
Hmm.
you're saying is like, no, slow down and be in it. And it's okay to be in it. And that's, you're hearing it from a coach. You're hearing it from two coaches right here, where it's like,
Yeah.
it's okay to just pause. Don't have to
Yeah.
rush it.
Right. Absolutely. Like, sit in whatever those feelings are, because whatever feelings you're feeling after the race are valid.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I have two more questions for you. The first one's
Okay.
the easy one, and it's just
Okay.
where do we find you and how do we best connect with you? And then also, if you can just tell us a little bit more about the Run Well Collective.
Yes. Okay. So you can find me on Instagram. That's the easiest place to find me, at eatwell.runbetter. Eatwell.runbetter. Also, my website is eatwellrunbetter.com. I've got some freebies on there, on-demand masterclasses. And then, most importantly, as you just mentioned, the Run Well Collective is a brand new membership starting in January. I have always done one-on-one run coaching and nutrition coaching, but they're higher ticket prices, right? When you're doing
Hmm.
individual coaching, it takes my time. Obviously, my time is valuable, as everybody's is. So I'm trying to find a way to help more people who maybe don't need quite as much support. And so that's how the Runwell Collective has been created. It is training and nutrition all together in one place. So there are, let me see, I'm still working on the training plans. There's two, four, six different training plans: half marathon, full marathon, couch to 5K, 5K, 10K, novice and intermediate mixed in there. So lots of different training plans you can follow and apply to your season. And then, of course, more heavily is the nutrition side of things, where you'll be learning all everything you need to know about fueling all this training that you're doing, so that you don't end up like the 20-year-old version of me. So that is starting in January. If you want updates on that or want to learn how to sign up for that, follow me on Instagram. That is the absolute best way.
Okay. Final question is, what are your final words for us?
Oh, like any word, any word, any words.
You're like, go eat something more than a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
No, I mean, I think kind of just to reiterate things I've said throughout is like, if you're not loving running, that's a red flag. If you don't love it, stop. And don't just stop, altogether, but like pivot, find joy in it again. If it feels like a chore, that's your body telling you something. If running feels like a chore, that means that you might not be recovered. You might not be eating enough. You might be doing too much. You might need a running friend, which has become
Mhm.
the theme of this episode. Find joy in your running, because life is just way too short to force yourself to do something that you don't want to be doing. We have enough things like taxes and carpools and all these other things that we don't want to be doing. Don't let running be
Mhm.
another one of those things.
That's it. We're leaving it there. Thank you, Courtney,
Okay.
for joining me. I don't want to say anything else. So, everyone,
Okay.
we'll see you next time.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks for having me.